A new exclusive for Spotify, the latest from Podnews.net with critically acclaimed, highly addictive CBC podcasts. Broadcaster Louis Theroux has signed an exclusive deal with Spotify. The show is the latest high-profile defection from the BBC. His podcast, Grounded, was the most popular podcast on BBC Sounds in Q2 2020. Michelle Obama is also doing an exclusive, but an Audible original, an exclusive to that platform. The Light podcast starts in early March. The Obama-owned production company Higher Ground signed the deal with Audible in June. Last month, Buzzsprout saw a market share growth of almost a percentage point. According to John Spurlock's Livewire, RSS.com overtook Theroux to become the number 9 biggest podcast hosting company, as measured by total new episodes published. Megaphone overtook SoundCloud to reach number 7. Libsyn's AdvertiseCast reports a significant drop in average podcast cost per thousand rates for January. At $22.28, the average rate in its marketplace is down 12% year-on-year and is the lowest figure for 23 months. Podnews' editor, James Cridland, that's me, is confirmed to be speaking at Podcast Movement Evolutions this year. I'll be sharing the results of the Podnews report card. It's your yearly opportunity to have your say about podcast platforms and apps, and you can enter today. It should only take a few minutes. Podnews.net/report card. 43% of Black Americans say they have listened to a podcast in the last month. That's 5 points higher than the total population, according to new data from SXM Media, Mindshare and Edison Research. The data was released in the Black Podcast Listener Report. Amplify Media's Stephen Goldstein says that podcasting is doing fine, thank you, in a blog post that we link to today. Twitter has announced that all free access to the Twitter API will end on February the 9th. Without announcing pricing or usage detail, it's likely to break many cross-posting tools and services. You can follow Podnews by searching for updates at podnews.net in Mastodon and other compatible platforms, where we'll continue to keep you updated. And Podcast Brunch Club looks at podcasts focusing on aging. In People News, Robbie Ashcroft has been announced as managing partner at Free Turn Entertainment. He joins from Dentsu's The Story Lab, which funded new shows. Libsyn has made a new Spanish office for Julep Media. They've hired a country director, a partner manager, and a country director for the German-speaking countries. Stefan Hopf has been made head of international at Libsyn. Soundstack has hired Scott Klaas as Chief Marketing Officer, Bill Feichtman as VP of Finance, and Tony Lycon as Head of Product. Putting the right experienced people into place is always step number 1, said CEO John Stevenson. And Ray Harkins, who works in podcast strategy at iHeartMedia on the West Coast, leaves the company on Friday. He's taking a moment to check out what else is happening in the podcast space. And in podcast news, Rights Back At Ya launched yesterday. It's the first podcast from Amnesty International Canada and introduces listeners to frontline activists creating unstoppable, lasting change in Canada and beyond in Black History Month. And do you need a new show to listen to? New Podcast Trailers is available in your favourite RSS podcast app and contains trailers from lots of new shows. You'll find it at podnews.net/trailers. This podcast is sponsored by CBC Podcasts. New 7-part series Love Janessa is climbing the international charts. Join host Hannah Ajala on a wild journey to find a woman whose images are used as bait in global catfish schemes. Love Janessa is from BBC World Service and CBC Podcasts, produced by Antica and Telltale Productions. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.